everybody. Welcome to another episode of Magic the Amateuring. I'm one of your hosts, Maria.
I'm another one of your hosts, Megan.
And we
by the end of
are
this,
so hot.
we might have heat stroke.
I swear to God, I'm going to have heat stroke.
By the end of this episode.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll just see who hits it first. It's like a race.
I mean, I cannot literally remember the last time I've been this hot.
Oh, I definitely can.
When was it?
It's like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Like the last time I biked home from work.
I am sweating from places that there are no sweat glands on a human.
What? Where do we not inside? Are you sweating inside?
I'm sweating internally right now.
I bet you that's a thing.
My hair is sweating.
What?
My teeth are sweating, Megan.
Aren't your teeth always sweating? And that's saliva?
Gross.
I definitely know doctors.
Everybody go to patreon.com/MTAcast and donate for the fund to buy Maria air conditioning. Oh my God.
Just think of it. It can't be this hot for that long.
Really?
Really?
Can it?
Nope.
I hope so. It's the humidity, as they say, as well.
It really is, as they say.
Yeah, it's not the heat, it's the humidity.
Oh, that's BS.
You think that's not true?
No, because if you've ever been in like dry heat, it gets like degrees-wise hotter, and then you feel like you're in an oven, and that's not any better.
So would you rather be in a steamy sauna or an oven is really the question we're asking
Neither.
here. Yeah, it's a tough choice. Tough choice.
Those both sound like I'm gonna die.
No, you're not. They're going to take you out. You're going to be nice and crisp. You're going to be really tan and ready to cut into at Thanksgiving. Megan, you're my turkey.
That's disturbing.
I'm sorry.
That's disturbing.
We have a very special show for you today because not only are we dying in our own heat sweat up here in the podcast room, we have Judge Rob on the show with us today to tell us all about the great stuff you're going to see in Eldritch, aka Spooky Moon, new mechanics, new cards, what you're going to need to know for your pre-release, what you're going to need to know just, in general after the pre-release.
What you're going to need to know for your SAT prep, what you're going to know for the GRE, what you're going to need to know for the LSAT, the board exam,
the bar,
and the bar exam.
Yeah, we've got questions that were tweeted into us at MTAcast that we're going to have Judge Rob answer, which is a super valuable tool. So I'm glad he's with us to help us out because there's some tricky stuff going on in this set.
Yes, there sure is.
We've got some returning mechanics, but 3 new ones, and some cards that do some pretty strange and cool things. So we're going to talk all about that on this show to get you ready for the pre-release. Next week, of course, we'll be live from the pre-release, and we'll talk about our experience playing the set for the first time.
It'll be a real party if we live to see it.
Yeah, right now it's up in the air. I don't know.
We might pass out.
Yeah.
We might pass out from dehydration before
What's the
it
first
happens.
sign of dehydration?
Being hot.
Okay, well, we're definitely there.
Yep, the second one is seeing cactuses.
Ooh.
Do you see any cacti?
Megan, you're looking kind of spiny.
Watch out, buddy.
Uh-oh.
You might be suffering from dehydration.
Oh, no! Maybe maybe this glass of clear liquid should be water and not alcohol. Screw it. Hey everybody, Judge Rob is here to give us the what's what, the how-to, the hoedown, and the slow and low on the new cards from Spooky Moon. Welcome, Judge Rob.
Right.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And Judge Rob, you are like the most official judge of our region, the North.
Yes, I am the regional coordinator of the USA North region. I'm responsible for North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin judges.
And also from preventing the White Walkers from breaching the wall.
Well, that's mostly true. Some of them email me and they're like, hey, can I come down and test a judge?
And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they have to be the White Walkers need judges too.
They want to play Magic too. And they want to play Magic at official times.
Magic is a game for everyone.
It really is.
Even if you're a weird zombie, snow zombie.
Yep.
That's what they are, right?
Basically...
I haven't watched all of Game of Thrones. I'm up to a certain point.
I don't know that you ever get more correct about them, but I don't think you get less correct about them.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, Rob, overall impressions, Eldritch Moon, how are you feeling? Is this going to be a difficult set in which to live and work as a judge?
I think that this set is mostly very straightforward from a judge perspective. I think it's very exciting from a flavor perspective, just like every previous Innistrad set has been. They decided to just go all in on horror tropes again. They're like, oh, we forgot some, so we're gonna come back and do them again. And everything is executed fairly straightforwardly. The cards, except in a couple cases, do pretty much what they say.
Okay, so just when in doubt, read the card.
Yeah, that's the general rule anyways. If the card is older than 10 years, then probably look it up on Gatherer. But for the most part, the cards do what they say.
All right, so let's start with some of the new mechanics. Which one do you want to do first, Rob? Ladies' choice.
So the single most complicated mechanic is Meld.
Yeah.
And it's not close, and it's also their new big splashy headlining mechanic, right? They try to do this every once in a while where they do something just crazy insane. And the last time they did something really, really outside the box was Innistrad Original.
What was that?
What was that?
Double face cards.
Oh, that's right.
They were like, they were like, stop us if you heard this one, but this card doesn't have a card back. And everybody's like, we actually haven't heard that one. And somebody from this corner said, didn't you do that already with Duel Masters? And they said, good eye. Also, it's still weird. And everybody said, yes, it is.
What was Duel Masters?
Duel Masters, now known as Kaijudo and then dead again, is a game that Wizards of the Coast produces that is a separate CCG that does really, really well in Japan. They started it a little less than a decade ago, had about 2 years in the US, died here, did really, really well in Japan, kept going. Then they reintroduced it as Kaijudo in the US, and then it lasted about 2 years and died in the US again.
Kaijudo sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, Kaijudo's pretty recent, and it's a very straightforward, very fun game, and they just decided that they're going to go over the top on everything. So if you look at the set names for Duel Masters, they're incredible. They're like Thunder Charge of Ultra Destruction.
Not pulling any punches.
No, they go look it up on Wikipedia and you'll laugh at the set names.
Okay.
They're just
so,
incredible.
Like instead of Innistrad, we'd have Zombie Land of Destruction and Mayhem.
Yeah. That might be restrained for a Duel Masters name.
Oh my god. Wow.
Yeah. And so they tended to what Wizards of the Coast tends to do is they do the thing where good artists create, great artists steal, right?
Yes.
They let other games experiment a little bit more. They tend to be very, very conservative with Magic now. And so they tried this out in Duel Masters with double-faced cards, and they thought it was amazing and awesome, and then they brought it to Magic, and they were like, there are some real tournament concerns, and they just kind of hand-waved them away, and they've been fine. And, well, no, they're at the recent Star City Open Invitational that I did, we gave out a humongous amount of deckless problems for people that had sleeves that weren't totally opaque.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Megan saw that happen firsthand.
Yep.
And that's a real, genuine tournament concern.
Yeah.
And they just said, this is acceptable collateral damage. And went on to print awesome, ridiculous cards. There are cards that double-facedness makes possible that other things
Yeah, sometimes you just have to take a risk and say, well, we're going to have some problems, but this is going to be overall really awesome, so let's do it.
Yep.
And the interesting thing with Meld, too, is that it's only on, quote-unquote, 3 cards.
Yeah, 6 cards, 3 cards. You can count it either way.
In the set, so they're kind of putting their foot in the water very tentatively with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about what the heck it does.
Yeah,
is.
so Meld as a big high-level concept is you have 2 cards that meld together, you do something, and then you pick them both up, turn them over, stick them together, and you get a double-sized card on the table.
It's like huge. It's a huge card.
Yeah, it's just straight up.
Love it.
If you've ever seen the oversized commander cards or like the planes from Plane Chase, it's about the same size.
Yeah,
that's about twice the size of a card. So if you've seen an oversized commander, that's about the size that Brisella is going to be on the table, just killing you in about 2 turns.
Yep.
And so, as mentioned, there are 3 pairs of Meld cards, and they are 2 different things that meld into legendary Eldrazi. Aside, these are the only legendary Eldrazi outside of the Eldrazi Titans.
Oh, really?
Oh.
It's really weird. They just decided that they wanted new legendary Eldrazi because they killed 2 out of 3, and so now they introduced 2 more.
Well,
interesting.
All right.
Well, although I do feel like the Bruna Gisela.
Yeah, Brisella. Thank you,
Like
by the way, to the fan who made us that cover art of like a
the
People
magazine.
with Brisella on the cover.
It's the hot new couple.
Oh, so good. So
She's
good.
the talk of They're the talk of Innistrad.
It's the talk of Innistrad. Unknown.
I feel like that's merited. Like, you can't have 2 legendary angels become like a meh Eldrazi.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And so it's sensible that they turn it into something legendary, but I'm actually going to touch on the only optional one. So if you look at if you look at the pairs, there is Bruna and Gisela, right?
Mm-hmm.
That merge together into Bracella, Voice of Nightmares. And when you look at the Meld text, it's on Gisela the Broken Blade. That trigger is at the beginning of your end step. If you both own and control Gisela the Broken Blade and a creature named Bruna the Fading Light, exile them, then meld them into Bracella, Voice of Nightmares.
Okay.
And so that's not optional. If you have them both,
it just happens.
It just happens. And it's the same way with the common black pair that melds. Chittering
Host and Graph Rats.
Chittering Host and Graph Rats.
Chittering Rats, Graph Host.
Graph Host.
What?
Yes.
Are you sure?
No,
Midnight
it's
Scavengers. Midnight Scavengers and Graph Rats merge into Chittering Host.
There we go.
Okay.
That's
Got there, guys.
Graph Rat says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you both own and control Graph Rats and a creature named Midnight Scavengers, exile them, then meld them into Chittering Host.
Yeah.
So those aren't optional. You pick them up and you meld them when that condition happens.
Yes.
And note the very, very specific way that condition is phrased. You have to both own and control.
Yes.
So you can't have somebody else's copy.
Right. Own in Magic means it started in your deck or you brought it in from outside the game via a card that you cast.
So you can't control magic this and be like, haha.
Yeah, exactly. If you steal your opponent's Midnight Scavengers with a control magic, Graph Rats will be like, no, you don't both own and control Graph Rats and Midnight Scavengers.
You don't both own and control me.
You don't control me. You control me. You don't own me. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so they'll only meld if you both own and control things that are named that. But the other one, Hanweir Battlements and whatever the red creature is, Hanweir
Garrison.
Militia?
Hanweir Militia.
Militia?
Hanweir Battlements is the land, and the creature is...
Let's find it.
I'm scrolling up to it. Just a second.
Hanweir Garrison.
Yep. So,
Hashtag nailed it.
So they are the only one that you can choose when you're going to be melding them.
Yes.
Hanweir... That's an interesting way to divvy up these cards. So, Hanweir Battlement says it's a land. Tap to add a colorless mana to your mana pool. So you can use it to cast all those sweet colorless matter spells. Red and tap. Target creature gains haste until end of turn. Red, 3 and tap. If you both own and control Hanweir Battlements and a creature named Hanweir Garrison, exile them, then meld them into Hanweir the Writhing Township.
Yeah, and that's a pretty sweet card. I almost said sweet awesome. Well, it is. 7/4 trample haste.
Yep, and
No
then when
big
it
deal.
attacks, put 2/3 colorless Eldrazi Horde creature tokens onto the battlefield,
seems
tapped
good.
and attacking. It's a legendary creature Eldrazi Ooze, and it probably just kills them outright for existing. It's just like, attack you for 13.
Were you trying to win this game? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's adorable.
Not anymore, you're not.
Yeah.
And Hanweir Garrison itself is just a very good card. 2 and a
Yeah.
red for a 2/3. Whenever it attacks, put 1/1 red human creature tokens onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So
Yep.
both sides of this are pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if this, happens in standard or something.
This is the one that is going to be constructed.
Yeah.
Playable. Hanweir Garrison is just a quite fine 3-cost red creature. As you said, it's just 4 power attacking all the time. And so people will play 4 of it, and they'll be like, why not? I'll play 4 garrisons, and I'll play 2 battlements, and I'll get there sometimes, and then my opponent will die, and it'll be great.
It'll be kind of fun to see the giant Hanweir the Writhing Township swinging in, because you've got to really do some finger choreography to get that to, swing at the same time.
So my guess is actually on coverage that they'll just, that they'll cut a page out of a binder or something, and have the double-faced sides together already, so that there's no choreography. You just
put it. Oh yeah, that would be
because they'll
nice.
just cut 2 slots out of a binder that are next to each other.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, it would look better.
Yeah.
But it's kind of neat that they're both printed on the back, and then you just turn them over and shrink.
Yep. And it's pretty cool.
So a lot of questions arise from Meld.
Yeah. So the other thing to mention about Meld is that Meld behaves not quite in the way that you want it to with tokens.
Okay.
Because oftentimes you'll both own and control tokens.
Yes.
And great. And it'll try to do its thing. And it doesn't do what you want it to. Let me pull up the exact rules on it so that I can
Okay.
quote them out. Because
Yeah, it's a little complicated. For such a splashy mechanic, I suppose that it should be, right? It can't be easy.
only 2 cards belong to the same meld pair can be melded. Tokens, cards that aren't meld cards, or meld cards that don't form meld pair can't be melded. If an effect instructs a player to meld cards that can't be melded, those cards remain in exile.
Okay.
So what Meld actually does is it exiles the cards off the battlefield and then brings them back as a single card. Well, if you control a token copy of one of these creatures, or that's a Meld pair, and try to meld it, both cards go to exile, neither card comes back.
So does that mean that, and like since some of them are not optional, it just happens, they both go away? Like if you had a Bruna and then somehow you got a token of Gisela, they'd be like, goodbye, friend, and then they'd leave and they'd never come back.
Yes.
Just like most of the people that come to my parties.
Megan, I always come back.
It's also the case...
Yeah, you're the only one.
It's also the case with cards that are copies of things.
Okay.
So in this set there is
the
Identity
03.
Thief.
Yeah.
And so if I have a Gisela and an Identity Thief, and I Identity Thief to copy your Bruna.
Yeah.
And I'll have a Bruna and Gisela at the end step. They'll trigger, they'll leave, and they won't come back because Identity Thief is a meld card.
Bye, girl.
So
rough.
So question, in exile, now I don't know if there's any, I can't remember if there's instant speed process or whatever.
It doesn't matter because the instruction to meld it is in the middle of the resolution. You can't do stuff in the middle of something resolving.
Okay.
So it just does it right during the resolution.
So you cannot process these things once they've gone away.
Yes. Note that they do behave a little bit differently. This is the other thing about exiling them. So if you do something that like exiles them and then brings them back, so there's
the one
Oblivion
that,
Restart.
yeah, and the +1/+1, bring it back with the +1/+1.
the new otherworldly journey, a new otherworldly journey.
Yeah.
It exiles them until end of turn, brings them back with the +1/+1 counter.
Yes.
They come back as their front face.
Okay.
With the +1/+1 counter.
So if you journeyed the Chittering Host.
Yep.
They'd be like, okay, peace out, and then you'd get back a Midnight Scavengers and a Graph Rats.
Yes.
Each with a counter.
Each with a counter, which will only last until the beginning of your next combat because they're not
because
optional.
then they'll flip.
Then they'll turn.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And
okay.
then when that happens, it clears all the counters off because they exile and come back.
But what about
Gotcha.
Brizella? If you were to counter, blink Brizella, what would happen?
She'd come back as Bruna and Gisela, separate things.
Yep.
And then at the beginning of the end step, they
Then
meld.
that's when
they're
the
also
meld
non-optional.
happens.
Yeah, it's based on where their trigger condition is.
Okay.
And so I'm just saying that Cheering Host will only last, or your two larger things will only last so long.
What about what if, like Maria said, Bruna and Gisela, you journey them somewhere,
Yep.
and then they come back and it's the end step, but they won't transform until the next.
They won't transform
end
until
step.
the next end step
Okay.
because we've passed the point where the end step
where
has
they
begun.
would be like, hey,
yeah, we passed the time where it's
Excuse
begun.
me.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to exile right now.
The other interesting thing is if you do something based on converted mana cost of a melded card, it sums the converted mana cost of the front faces.
Yeah, that's so weird.
It's because they changed the rules for double-faced cards
Yeah.
and made it based on the front face's converted mana cost.
Gotcha.
And so that meld cards are just sum them up. You get a large number.
So if you wanted to say repeal a Brizella,
Yes.
you would have to pay
11.
because 7 plus 4.
Yep.
All right.
If you want to repeal Handweir the Writhing Township, it's still 3.
Oh.
Because it's a land plus a creature. 0 plus
That's
3.
perfect.
Great.
Nice.
Turns out that you can still abrupt decay that card.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because they made this to make cards like abrupt decay slightly worse and then made a card that it doesn't matter for. Good work.
Meld!
And there's a whole bunch of other stuff buried in the FAQ. They're colorless cards. You can see that on them. You can name them. So if you, for some reason, need to name the back face, like you want a Pithing Needle.
Oh, I see.
Gotcha.
I was like, Earl. I will name it Earl.
No, I mean you can, but like if you need to Pithing Needle them or name them for something, you can name the back face on its own. So none of them have activated abilities.
No.
But there's things that are relevant for naming cards.
Okay.
And so you can name that back face.
Remember
the whole
to
thing is a
use
single card.
the full name when you're in a tournament setting.
Well, just identifying it unambiguously is enough. So if you say the Meld back that is the legendary angel that, I don't know, she's like a 9/7 or something. Yeah,
that's fine.
Whatever.
Okay.
The Meld angel is also just fine.
Yeah.
They're all fairly clear.
Excuse me, which Meld
Which one,
angel?
buddy?
I've definitely done that to people in tournaments where they're like, yeah, Kuman something. I'm like, there's a number of cards with those letters in them in standard right now because Kumano had a bunch of cards.
Oh, I see.
Enough.
Okay.
And they were like, I can't remember anything more. I go, can you describe it? No. Okay. Killed you last game.
Can you describe the man who stole your purse? I have a lineup of cards that could have stolen your purse. Will you identify it?
Please point out the card which you think is going to kill you from this lineup of cards.
I feel like that should count. Magic card lineup. So, okay, we've got some questions from listeners too about Meld.
About we're
Meld.
just gonna hit Meld questions real quick.
No, we'll come back to them. We'll circle back to them, but just FYI, we'll talk about it a little more.
Yeah. So we're gonna hit Emerge real quick. So Emerge is basically the chest bursters from Alien as a mechanic.
Yes.
They burst out from inside something else.
Yes.
And they're a really slick way to make colorless cards that also have color identity for Commander and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about who's one of my favorite ones. I really like Elder Deep Friend.
Elder Deep Friend. I'm sure that's what it's called.
It's Elder Deep Fiend.
Oh, that's so cute, though.
It's a creature Eldrazi octopus. It's a 5/6 for 8 mana.
Just a little Elder Deep Friend.
Yeah. He's my friend. Yeah. He's gonna hug a bunch of people.
That's what I called my grandpa because we used to have some really deep conversations, like we got into some stuff.
He was your Elder Deep Friend.
Yeah. Just kidding, I never knew my grandpa. Single tier. Either one.
Whoa, boy.
Yeah. That's why whenever I see somebody wearing suspenders, I get a little teary-eyed.
So,
I really brought it down.
Yeah.
So, Elder Deep Friend. He's a 5/6 Eldrazi octopus for 8 colorless mana. He has Flash, and he has Emerge of 5 blue. So that changes the way that you cast him. You can choose to cast him either for his 8 colorless mana, or you can cast his for his Emerge cost, and you can sacrifice a creature as part of emerging him to reduce his cost by that creature's converted mana cost.
Yes.
So if you sacrifice a bear cub, then you will end up with reducing his cost by 2 colorless mana, which means you'll pay blue, and 3. He also has, when you cast Elder Deep Friend, tap up to 4 target permanents, because he wants to hug you.
Oh my gosh!
I want to hug you so much. So, just to be very clear, you cannot just cast Emerge without sacrificing something.
You totally can. You may cast a spell by sacrificing a creature and paying the Emerge cost reduced by the creature's converted mana cost.
So, could you just pay the Emerge cost?
You should be able to just Emerge.
5 blue?
Let me confirm in the rules.
All right.
I feel
That's why I asked.
Great question, Megan.
Yes.
Yes. Is that your phone making noises?
No,
it
it's
is
my
not.
tablet.
Oh, it's your tablet.
Turn it off
Okay.
real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
My apologies.
Here's something that I
thought I
know.
had it off.
I'm not Judge Rob, but this is an Emerge fact that when you sacrifice a creature, you're only reducing the colorless mana cost. You are not reducing the colored mana cost. So no matter what, you're going to have to pay those 2 blue.
Yes, you'll always have to pay at least 2 blue for him.
Elder Deep Friend. Speaking of Alien, great movie. Megan,
Yeah.
1 or 2, what's your preference?
Ooh, I've most recently watched 2, and I just remember,
You watched it without me?
No, you were there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you do need to sacrifice a creature to emerge. That's correct. My apologies. I kind of glossed over
okay.
the reminder text when I was reading it.
Oh, no, that's all good.
Yeah, so you
So
do...
you can never just cast it for
Yeah,
Emerge
you can't
without
just
stacking
cast him for
something.
Yeah, that doesn't make
Okay.
any sense.
Yep.
Sweet. So, Maria, you remember this, because I think I probably told you during the movie, but, Sigourney Weaver's wearing that kick-ass blue jumpsuit.
Yeah, it's great.
I want that jumpsuit.
You would look fantastic in that jumpsuit.
Thank you. So if you have a lead on, a Sigourney Weaver Aliens 2, or just Aliens.
Aliens.
Yeah, just aliens.
Jumpsuit, tweet at us.
It's going to be like $350.
It's going to be so expensive.
Do you know what? I will save for it. I will save.
Everybody, patreon.com/MTAcast. Help me buy some AC and help Megan buy a Sigourney Weaver jumpsuit.
No one will ever donate to Patreon again. They're like, what is this even going towards?
I'm serious. We're dying in here.
Oh, we do have these sick new microphones.
Yes,
thanks to the
we do.
Patreon.
Yes, we got.
For those of you who are watching on the video,
we got new mics. We also have a new field recorder with a bunch of inputs. I don't know if you've seen us report live from GPs or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we were pretty hampered in the fact that we only had 2 inputs on our field recorder. So now we have a full 6. So we've got some great stuff planned coming up in the future.
Yeah.
Can't quite tell you what it is yet, but it's really exciting. And we are definitely going to be using all of those mic inputs to have a super sweet show on the road.
that is right. Moving back to emerge.
Moving back to emerge. So there's a bunch of emerge creatures. They're cross colors and rarities, and they all have a when you cast this trigger, just like a lot of Eldrazi do. Yeah. And so you'll see them. You'll eat some creatures. They'll burst out of their chest, and they'll drain your opponent for 3, or Droneard Behemoth doesn't quite have a when you cast trigger, but he has a thing that's only effective on the turn that you cast him. They're all just weird.
Draw a card.
Do you know what, Abundant Maw? I'm looking at you.
That's the
trying to be the next Siege Rhino up in here. I don't think so, buddy.
That's not an unreasonable card.
No, seriously.
I don't think so.
I saw somebody on Twitter asked the question, humans obviously is a deck. It's been a deck for a while. It seems even more pushed now.
Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done? And they said, hey, we tried our hardest to make decks that would be able to fight against it. And now I'm wondering if it's going to be some emerge happening in Standard.
Very possibly.
Could be cool.
Maybe.
Siege bug.
Siege bug.
Never, buddy.
So the other mechanic that is new is Escalate. And this represents the Gatewatch coming in and wanting to raise the stakes or something. It's a very mechanical mechanic. It's not very thematic. And
the situation in general on Innistrad is escalating.
I never thought about it. Emerge is so flavorful.
It super is, as is Meld,
and so
in
is
a really
Meld.
gross way.
Yeah, Meld is... Meld can be... You could actually kind of just jam Meld into most sets. And
what? You could be 2 things are sticking together now.
Yeah, there's a lot of things where you can put 2 things together and upgrade them into something else.
Like Thelma and Louise. They're riding this car into the Grand Canyon, and when they're done, they'll never be separated. Sorry.
It's like a peanut butter sandwich where you've made it with 2 different kinds of peanut butter.
That's right. That was much better.
Probably almond butter instead of peanut butter is your other butter. Almond butter is amazing.
I love almond butter. Don't even get me started.
But you guys, isn't almond butter peanut butter sandwich too much? And 2, didn't we already say that almonds are BS?
You said that almonds are BS.
We cannot change our almond stance on this show.
I could have whatever stance I want. I'm a guest.
That's true. You're a guest. But I'm telling you that Maria can't agree with you. We've made our stance on almonds clear.
Why are we the same person? Almond butter is my new thing. I love it on a Granny Smith apple with some cinnamon on top.
Do you know how bad that is for water?
I mean, it's not like you're losing the water.
What? Almonds use so much water as a crop.
Megan, get off your water stump.
Where does it just do we jettison it into space after we're done with the almonds?
I can't stand on a water stump in the first place, okay?
Do we jettison that water into space when we're done using it on almonds?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. Then it's probably really bad.
It's gone.
It's a bad idea all around. So the situation is escalating.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use one of the rares because it's super cool. Collective Brutality, black and 1 sorcery.
Okay.
Escalate, discard a card.
Ooh.
We're going to talk about what that means in a second. And it has choose 1 or more. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose an instant or sorcery card from it. That player discards that card. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So you can choose as many of these as you want. You want all 3? You can choose all 3. You just have to pay the escalate cost for every one of them past the first. It's kind of like Strive was, and it's kind of like Entwine was from Mirrodin. If you took those 2 mechanics and you just kind of jammed them together, you get emerge. Yeah, if you melded them,
kind of like
get emerge.
Kicker in a strange way, maybe.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing. You can kick it to get extra modes. The big quote from years ago is that every mechanic is either kicker or split cards. Which isn't quite true, but it's pretty close to true.
Yeah.
Either you pay some extra for some more effect, or you get to choose between 2 effects. That covers almost everything in Magic.
Okay.
Yeah. So the escalate cost is different across different cards.
Every escalate cost is different.
Yes.
And you have to pay its base cost, and then in order to get more out of it, you just pay the escalate cost repeatedly.
And you have to pay that right off the top.
Yep.
You when you're casting the spell, you have to announce.
Yep. You announce the spell. You pick all the modes that you're going to do. You pick all the targets for those modes. Then you pay the cost and the escalate cost.
And you have to pay all those costs. And then if it gets countered, too bad.
Too bad.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't be like, I will pay for the first one, and just kind of look at it.
And then I'll pay for another one.
And then for another one.
And then I'll pay for a third one.
Yeah, no.
None of that business.
The other thing to note with Collective Brutality, and why I chose this, is because you announce the spell, pay the cost, put it on the stack. If you have some madness cards, Collective Brutality, they'll go on the stack above Collective Brutality.
Ooh,
because
okay.
none of their triggers will happen until after you're finished casting Collective Brutality.
Okay.
So they'll resolve first.
Oh.
So you still have to have chosen targets, but you'll get to know whether or not your madness spells resolve before you make them discard their instant or sorcery. And they'll get to use their counter spells on your madness cards that you would be taking away with Collective Brutality.
Oh, bummer.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So be aware. That's the weird thing about Collective Brutality. Otherwise, we have 2 mechanics that are coming back. Madness, which I just talked about a little bit, and Delirium is also back. And those are exactly the same as they were in Shadows over Innistrad, if you remember those.
Yep.
And Delirium has, they spread it out a little bit more. It touches some more things, and sometimes it'll make creatures bigger where it didn't before. Mm-hmm. But realistically, it's check the number of cards in your graveyard, or the number of card types in your graveyard. Do you have a Tarmogoyf? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Yes, and we do still have we do have double-faced cards.
Yes, double-faced cards. There's only all of them turn into Eldrazi monstrosities in the back, except for the legendary werewolf.
Yeah, isn't it funny that the werewolf transform ability, quote unquote, is not going to be a universal this time around? So it's not just going to happen if you cast no spells on this turn.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is all the werewolves start as werewolves. If you look at the cards, they start on the full moon side. They start transformed, and then the other side actually has a little Emrakul symbol, a little set symbol.
Things are getting real messy over here.
That makes so much sense. So they're not. We don't even know. Maybe what if
they're not even people?
What if their cards from Innistrad were the front, like the before even the human time?
The humans are gone. There's no human time on Innistrad anymore.
The humans aren't totally dead. There's a couple of humans.
No, there's humans, but the ones that were werewolves, the ones that were werewolves are just werewolves all the time now.
Yeah.
Are we
Before
werewolves
they become
or swearwolves?
Loopy monsters.
Yep. And they start.
We're werewolves, not swearwolves.
Note that all the werewolves in their front face start as werewolf horrors now.
Ooh.
And then they change into Eldrazi werewolf.
Sick.
Interesting.
That's something you don't want coming at you in the middle of the night.
No.
I also want to apologize for my horror of a New Zealand accent.
I thought it was
just then.
a C minus.
Oh gosh, that's generous.
That's a bit generous.
Very generous. I think it only sounded as though I had a lisp.
I would give it a little more than that.
That is a weird.
Are we werewolves or swearwolves?
What is? Oh, Eldrazi Reflection.
No,
right?
that is bizarre.
Talking about Aurora of Emrakul.
It is the first card with reflection printed on its creature type line.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Very cool.
There are 2 things that make reflection tokens in Magic's history.
Oh yeah. What are they?
They are Spirit Mirror and they are Soul Reflection.
That makes sense.
They Spirit Mirror just makes a reflection token in return, and then it lets you kill reflections for 0 mana because it was making a unique token.
That's why I bring shards of glass in my dice bag.
To make reflection tokens?
Yeah.
Or to use this shard of broken glass representatives?
Yeah.
This is my shard of broken glass.
Judge, may I use this?
You know what? I feel like it's also perpetuating false information about how auroras work.
Do you want to explain auroras to everybody?
I don't right now.
Check out Steve and Steve's podcast on auroras. It's pretty good.
That's true.
Pretty good.
So let's hit a couple individual cards here real quick. The big one, of course, to hit is Emrakul the Promised End.
Yeah.
That's the big daddy herself.
Yes. So Emrakul, yes, her daddy herself. So Emrakul the Promised End, she is a 13/13 for 13 colorless mana, or for 13 generic mana. A legendary creature Eldrazi. Emrakul the Promised End costs 1 colorless less to cast for each card type of 1 cards in your graveyard. Super Delirium.
Yeah, super Delirium. And I heard it said that what if you have a creature that is an artifact creature? Does that count twice?
Yep, it'll count both, just like it would for Delirium.
Crazy.
It's possible to get Delirium off of as few as 2 permanents or 2 cards in your graveyard.
You know what? Something I honestly don't know if I knew that.
Wait, so we have artifact creature.
Oh no, you could.
Is there another one that could get you?
Tribal Sorcery.
Oh, Tribal Sorcery. Okay.
Or
Tribal Instant.
Or Enchantment Creature from Theros.
Oh yeah.
Because you could have an artifact land from Mirrodin And there's lots of 2 different card types on our card things.
Oh, interesting. Well, the crazier you are, the easier it is to find Emrakul.
Yes.
True.
And Emrakul the Promised End says, when you cast Emrakul, you gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn.
What? Yeah, we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I listened to that show when you had a question, some questions about this.
We made a mistake.
Yes. Well, it hadn't been announced yet at the time. It wasn't
a mistake at the time?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yep. Okay. So, the Emrakul also has Flying Trample and Protection from Instance. You can still counter Emrakul. Protection from Instance doesn't apply until she's on the battlefield.
Okay.
Be aware.
Oh, okay.
But
Very good to know.
the controlling a player, there's 2 things of note. First of all, there's a change. Previously to the set, you could look at a player's sideboard while you were controlling them because they had access to the information, so you should be able to look at it. They decided they didn't like that in R&D, and so now you may never look at their sideboard. You control them.
Never?
Well, they can show it to you if they want, but they
just
aren't
like you can
obligated to
show your hand at any time.
You want to see my sideboard?
Here you go.
Hey, do you want to see my sideboard?
How tilted would you have to be like, here, just look at all of it. Do you like what you see? Am I pretty now?
If I would have drawn a wish, look at how would I have beaten you.
Yeah.
So you can't look at their sideboard at all, and that means cards that let you retrieve cards from outside the game don't let you do anything with Emrakul the Promised End. So there's Coax from the Blind Eternities in the set, which lets you get an Eldrazi card that you own from outside the game.
Mm-hmm.
If you are controlling somebody and cast Coax from the Blind Eternities, throw it away. Put it in the graveyard. You don't get to fetch anything.
Literally throw it away. Walk to the trash can and put the card in there because that is what it is for.
You don't have to do it yourself. You're controlling them. You can tell them to do it.
Excuse me. Go put your card in the graveyard. In the trash can.
Can we
Go
talk
put your card
about
in the trash can.
Coax after Emrakul?
Yes, that's the next thing that I wanted to hit. The other thing that I wanted to hit with controlling another player, if you're playing Two-Headed Giant at the pre-release and you get hit with Emrakul's control effect, both of the people on your team are controlled.
Oh, wow.
You control a whole team when you control a player in Two-Headed Giant.
Sweet.
Which is, it basically means Emrakul wins you the game in Two-Headed Giant.
Yeah, well, basically wins game in general. This was a question that was submitted, which I'll say now because I remember it. What is preventing you from conceding when you control the other player?
So conceding is actually something that's outside. Well, the rules for controlling another player say that you can.
Okay.
And second of all, it's really something that's outside of the context of the game. There's not you can concede at any time, it says, but that's a little bit outside of what happens normally in the game. It's like Shadowborn Apostle says you can put any number of cards named Shadowborn Apostle in your deck, and that's rules that happen before the game starts.
Sure. Okay.
So
gotcha.
there's stuff that's outside of the game, especially in a tournament setting. The clock is outside of the game. You can't force your opponent to just sit. And on Magic Online, you use your time and not their time when you're controlling them.
Oh,
so you can't just pass the turn to them and then have them time out.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
We're going to talk about Coax from the Blind Eternities, though. First wish in a long time. Blue and 2, sorcery. You may choose an Eldrazi card you own from outside the game or in exile, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. And first of all, this is the first thing that lets you get both from outside the game and in exile. Ring of Maruf should, but they don't want it to for some reason. It specifically says get a card that has been removed from the game by something. They don't let you do it. But Coax from the Blind Eternities says pick an Eldrazi, put it in your hand. If you're in a tournament setting, this is a card from your sideboard. So if you are limited in your sealed deck or you drafted, that's a card that's in your sideboard.
Okay.
From your pool of cards that you didn't build your deck with.
Gotcha.
If you are in a constructed format, that's going to be one of the 15 cards in your sideboard. And this is the kind of card that you look at it and you go, when you think of colorless Eldrazi, you think of Emrakul and Ulamog and Kozilek, and actually, realistically, there's a lot of fairly cheap colorless Eldrazi because all the devoid creatures are colorless.
Yep.
What about Commander?
And is an Eldrazi card you own. In Commander, so different playgroups play it differently. My playgroup just doesn't play with wishes because we don't care. But in Commander, these are mostly blank, according to how the Commander rules are set up, because there's no sideboards in Commander.
Okay.
Because you play single games.
So why does it say something? I mean, that just seems so bizarre. Why doesn't it say your sideboard?
Because it's not constructed merely for tournament play. The majority of cards that are purchased actually aren't for tournaments, they're for casual play. So people like just being able to go into their box and grab a card.
Oh, I see.
Right. And so it's structured so that you can just get an Eldrazi card you own. You don't have to worry about having a sideboard in your casual game. Go to your binder. Who cares? Right?
Yeah.
And so it's designed to be more open than just go get a card from your sideboard.
Very cool.
And in general, except in a few cases, cards don't refer to tournament-related stuff. They refer to just specifically the game rule stuff, which is independent of tournaments.
It's so interesting how quickly Meghan and I have become tournament heads instead of amateur kitchen table players.
Well, you don't have a...
Why would you even bother with not why would it just say in your sideboard?
You know, like not too long ago, somebody was telling me that a friend of mine was like, I was drafting or whatever, and I'm like, ooh, tell me all about it. And it turned out that they had drafted, not with 3 packs, but with an entire box.
What?
And I was like, how dare you call that a draft? That's not a draft, that's an abomination. But then I was just like, Maria, get off your high horse.
Calm down.
Yeah. I was like, was your deck the sickest deck that's literally ever been made?
How many Wrath effects did you have in your draft a box deck?
Yeah.
Is the answer less than 4? Then it was probably worse than the last one I did.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, well, that's interesting. All right, noted.
Yep. And so, as I mentioned, most of the other cards are fairly straightforward. There was a couple that I wanted to touch on. Mirrorwing Dragon was, and Tree of Perdition were the other two that I really wanted to touch on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mirrorwing Dragon, it's a 4/5 for red 3 creature dragon flying. When a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Mirrorwing Dragon, the player copies that spell for each other creature he or she controls that the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. And you had this as your preview card. It was sweet. And the big thing to know in Mirrorwing Dragon is it's, well, a couple things to note.
Yeah.
It's not optional, so you can get got, as they say. And so your opponent can giant growth your Mirrorwing Dragon and make their team huge and attack you.
Yep.
They can also Heroes Downfall your dragon and kill all their creatures.
Yeah.
So
it's a two-way street.
Yep, and you can do the same with your Mirrorwing Dragon. It also must target exactly one creature and nothing else. So if it spells with Awaken from Battle for Zendikar, if you awaken a land, that's targeting the land.
Okay.
So if you're awakening a land and targeting Mirrorwing Dragon, well, it doesn't do much.
Okay.
Congratulations, you can ruin his path Mirrorwing Dragon safely.
Yes, that's the other thing is those cards are safe against Mirrorwing Dragon when you're playing against it.
Interesting.
And so just look at, it has to target exactly one thing, and that thing must be Mirrorwing Dragon.
So if you had an Escalate card,
yep,
for instance, I haven't looked through every single one of them, so I can't think of one off the top of my head.
There's actually the Escalate card we just looked at.
But that targets 2 different creatures. If you targeted and one of them was Mirrorwing and one of them was something else, it wouldn't happen.
But if you Collective Brutality, target creature gets -2/-2 to turn, and Escalate for target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. You can Mirrorwing Dragon. You can Collective Brutality, Mirrorwing Dragon. All of the creatures that you control for some reason because they're all big enough, and then gain a whole pile of life because every copy of Collective Brutality does the whole text.
Oh wow!
So this is target opponent loses 2 life. But if it was each opponent loses 2 life. If it didn't target the opponent, then you get the effect.
So in Collective Brutality's case, it wouldn't work because it also has another target besides Mirrorwing Dragon.
But if Electrolyze up to 2 creatures, divide 2 damage as you choose, and then draw a card. If you target just Mirrorwing Dragon with 2 damage, you get all of your creatures and then draw a card for every one of those.
Every single time. Yeah.
And so there's a few cards like that kicking around. And note that it only targets creatures. As mentioned with Awaken, if somehow Mirrorwing Dragon is a land and you awaken it, it'll copy it out into creatures that are lands because those are legal targets.
Okay.
Well,
and then
think
ignore the
about
rest.
your preview card.
Yes.
What was it?
Oh.
Imprisoned in the Moon.
Imprisoned in the Moon, yep. Except that it loses all abilities, so it doesn't have that ability.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Imprisoned in the Moon's also super cool, which is... We can hit that after Tree of Perdition if you really want to. But
I mean, we can just say that it's sweet and go read the article.
Yeah, it's sweet. Go read the article. You talk about it really well. So, Tree of Perdition's one of the other oddballs. This is the dark version of Tree of Redemption from the previous Innistrad.
Oh, that's
You cannot
cool.
be redeemed.
It's a little callback.
It's exact callback. You exchange the word opponents for yours in this.
Oh, cool.
It's exactly the same card except green instead of black on the other one.
Oh, I love it.
It's a 0/13 for black and 3 creature plant with defender. And it has tap. Exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness. The thing to know with exchanges is both things have to be there to exchange them. So if you activate Tree of Perdition and then they kill it in response, nothing gets exchanged.
Okay.
And note that it's exchanging the current toughness and then applying other effects on top of it. So if you put a +1/+1 counter of Tree of Perdition, it will exchange 14 with their life total, and its base toughness becomes 14, and then it applies the +1/+1 counter, so it becomes a 15 toughness creature.
What if, in response, I decide that I don't have a life total? They say, I'm going to tap to exchange Tree of Perdition's toughness with your life total, and I say, I don't have a life total. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. If something asks for a value that doesn't exist, it gets 0.
Okay,
You're probably dead.
Somebody had a Twitter question about Tree of Perdition.
Probably with triskaidekaphobia.
Starring Tom Hanks. Yes, but this was another one which I remember off the top of my head, which was, does this happen? Oh, God. Maybe I
just does this happen?
Just
Tree of
does
Perdition.
This happen?
Does this happen? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. So, sometimes you make them 13.
Okay. I was wondering, the new Tree plus Phobia combo, does it work if your opponent is below 13 life?
Yeah.
Yep.
The Tree of Perdition would become whatever their life total is. So if their life total is 5, it would become a 0/5.
So, question. If, say, their life total is 20, and the tree's is 13.
Yep.
You tap it and you swap them. The tree's toughness becomes 20, and their life total becomes 13.
Yep.
Can you later swap again because you feel like it?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
That's the old Tree of Redemption. The way that you did shenanigans with it, and the way that one of my ADH decks does, is it loads a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, and then trades repeatedly, because then I'm gaining life.
Oh, okay.
Man, I want to put a bunch of negative counters on this bad boy.
If you put -X counters, you can deal them damage by tapping Tree of Perdition.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah. Because, say they're at 20 life, we have a Tree of Perdition that's at 0/13, and I put 3 -1/-1 counters, so it's now 0/10.
Yeah.
I'll exchange 10 for 20, and then that 20 becomes 13. Right? Because it has 3 -1/-1 counters.
Yes.
Or 20 becomes 17. I can't math, apparently. 20 becomes 17, so then you trade them back for the 10, which 10 becomes 7. Then you trade them back again.
Whoa.
Oh, boy.
It's crazy.
The Tree of Algebra is probably what it should be called.
It's a great name.
I mean, for some of us, perdition and algebra are the same thing, so.
Starring Tom Hanks.
And Permeating Mass I want to talk about, because there's so many cards in this set.
One more question about the tree.
Okay.
When is the last moment that I can use Tree of Perdition to instant win with triskaidekaphobia in play?
So with triskaidekaphobia's trigger on the stack, you can respond to your own triskaidekaphobia trigger to swap their life total with the tree.
Okay.
And if they kill the tree in response, no exchange happens.
Okay.
So, or if they put a +1/+1 counter on the tree, then you can't kill them.
Okay.
Or if they journey the tree.
Yeah.
Get out of here, tree.
Yep. So, Permeating Mass. My friends are trying to figure out whether or not we should call this Derp Touch.
Derp Touch.
So, it's a 1/3 for single green, creature spirit. Whenever Permeating Mass deals combat damage to a creature, that creature becomes a copy of Permeating Mass.
This card is kind of confusing.
It's so cool. I love it. So, it reads very straightforward. I hit you with hit your creature with a Permeating Mass, and now it's a Permeating Mass. But when it hits my creature, is a Permeating Mass.
And that creature's back to normal, question?
No. They stay Permeating Masses forever. Oh. There's no duration on this.
So it can turn everything into Permeating Masses, because the first one turns your opponent's creature into a Permeating Mass, and then you have a new creature that's not a Permeating Mass, but their Permeating Mass deals damage to your creature, and now it's
everything's
also
a Permeating Mass.
It's a disease,
including your life total.
You get a mass.
You can't exchange your life total with Tree of Perdition, because my life total is Permeating Mass.
It takes some work to get there. But yeah, Permeating Mass is straight up a disease. You get the Permeating Mass disease, and you spread it to other people by touching them. And
oh boy,
it's a rough disease.
It's a rough disease.
Leprosy.
It is exactly like leprosy. It turns you into 1/3s.
There's an armadillo hidden in the picture hidden in the art.
Is it on his underwear?
Yep, that's an armadillo. He's wearing armadillo underwear.
Got it.
Which is a real thing in Texas.
I feel like that's true.
Do you know what? It might be. I was definitely lying, but I'm sure they exist.
But now that I think about it, yeah.
Tweet at MtA cast.
If you have a picture of armadillo
with
underwear.
With armadillo underwear.
Please go to patreon.com/MTAcast so we can buy a pair of armadillo underwear and wear it on the show.
What do you guys even do with this Patreon?
Anyways, I also want a 2-second hit on Dark Salvation. Black XX sorcery. Target player puts X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. Then up to one target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each zombie that player controls. You target a player, and then you target a creature. If you're on Magic Online, and you're like, I want to kill that creature. Why can't I? It's because you need to target yourself first. If you target your opponent...
Otherwise, it's going to give that creature a bunch of zombies, and that creature won't know what to do with them.
But if you click on your opponent, be like, no, I want to kill his creature with the zombies. It'll give them a bunch of zombies. And it might kill the creature, but then they have a bunch of zombies.
Yeah.
So, don't do that.
Okay, noted.
Tell them, you get the zombies.
Yes.
I get the zombies. You get the dead times.
Yes, you get the dead times.
But not the zombie dead times, just the creature dead times.
Just the regular old dead times.
Just the regular old dead times.
We did mention this card on the last show, which I want to issue a correction about.
Oh, Providence. That's right. It does count as life gain.
Yes. Anytime your life total changes, including like if you Tree of Perdition swap, it's gaining or losing life.
That's interesting. I would not have assumed that.
Yep.
No, me neither. I, in fact, incorrectly assumed the opposite.
Quick questions with Judge Rob. So we asked people on Twitter to submit us some questions for Eldritch/Spooky Moon, and we got quite a lot of responses. So we're going to go quickly down this list, and Rob is going to give us the answer. All right, here's a question from John. Is there anything stopping you from casting Emrakul and then... we already did that one, making your opponent concede. Okay. Yep. How many spells, this is a silly one, must be on the stack before you can cast Convolute and be able to say, this is getting convoluted?
I don't think it's necessarily the number of spells. I think that it is the complexity of the spells that are on the stack.
Oh, very good.
Good
because it's very conceivable that if all the spells in the stack are just like draw 2, discard a card at random.
What if it's like 3 convolutes? It's like
if there's 3 convolutes, like that seems good.
It's getting convoluted.
I feel like you can say it even after the first one, but you're gonna get slapped.
Yeah. But after like 2?
2 is...
If you're putting the third one on the stack.
I think you'll get a eye roll at 1 for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the best way to use Lunar Force? Do you have to use it on the first instance of the opponent casting any spell? I added that last part because I believe that's what they meant. So Lunar Force, go up a little bit.
Stop.
Is an enchantment.
Oh, yeah.
It's a strange card.
Whenever an opponent casts a spell, sacrifice Lunar Force and counter that spell. It is not optional.
Not optional. So it's like whatever the next thing they do.
Yes, the next spell that you cast, Lunar Force eats.
That card seems terrible.
It's a somewhat functional reprint of Hesitation, which is whenever a player casts a spell, counter a spell. Counter that spell, which countered your own stuff.
Oh.
Lunar Force is actually not terrible. They have to throw a dead spell through it first. They get to choose which spell, but it's just counter the next thing they cast.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem good. It gives too much option to my opponent.
Yeah, it gives them options. It's a card that it's nice to exist, but nobody's going to play it.
All right, we've got a question for Brian. Can I escalate a spell with Goblin Dark Dwellers? Escalate a spell cast with Goblin Dark Dwellers.
Yep, Goblin Dark Dwellers replaces the mana cost, which is the number up in the upper right-hand corner, but it doesn't replace any additional costs.
Okay.
Escalates an additional cost, you can pay the additional costs.
Okay. If I have a Conduit of Ruin, and I try to cast an Endless one with 3 mana, will it come into play with 5 counters? Whoa, these are old cards.
That one was old. Conduit of Ruin is the one that reduces your next creature spell by 2.
I don't understand this question.
It's from the previous set.
Endless one is X to cast. So you choose a value for X, and that determines the base cost of the spell. So if you choose, say, a value for 4 for X, that determines the base cost. Then the cost is reduced by 2 for Conduit of Ruin. And so then you will pay 2 mana for 4.
Okay.
Or whatever numbers that you want to choose.
So the answer is essentially yes.
Yeah.
This is another older one. Legendary rule. I have the new Olivia on the battlefield, and I cast another Olivia. Can I use the first Olivia's ability on the new one?
The one where you discard a card to give it haste.
Yeah. So that allows you to discard a card as you're casting a vampire spell, correct?
I believe so. I actually never played with Olivia's sad face. It's only made for me. Do you know my name was almost Olivia?
What?
Yeah. Would that be weird for you?
Yes.
You can't imagine me.
I can't imagine being your friend.
Harsh!
So, Olivia Mobilized for War, the relevant text is whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may discard a card. If you do put a +1/+1 counter on that creature, it gains haste until end of turn, and it becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. Yes. You'll have to choose which Olivia before the trigger goes in you keep before the trigger goes in the stack, but the trigger will still go on the stack regardless of which Olivia you keep.
Okay.
Okay.
Noted. Another silly question. Why did I think Modern English's Melt With You was Meld With You? Can I still sing it at the pre-release?
You can sing whatever you want at the
I'll
pre-release.
stop the world and meld with you. Yep, you got it, buddy.
Totally works. Yeah, I think if you meld at the pre-release, like if you're lucky enough to have that in your pool,
you're obligated
need to sing
to
it.
sing that.
Ugh. Unsubstantiate doesn't counter the spell, so casting effects still resolve even if the spell returns to the hand.
Correct. And casting effects happen even if you countered the spell note. Countering the spell doesn't... Emrakul's The Promised End's trigger is when you cast Emrakul The Promised End. You can counter her. She'll still control that turn.
Okay.
And Unsubstantiate sends it back so they can take another crack at that. It's not terribly great against Eldrazi's with on-cast triggers.
Yeah.
I think it's in the set specifically because it's bad against them, and so they can print this aggressively costed remand too, and it won't have as much of an impact as it would otherwise.
Yeah. If for some reason we have to flip one of the new Meld cards, like Gisela, with no sleeves, do we replace it with a checklist card without sleeves? Things that flip and a Meld into a 2/2 would be confusing with half a creature sitting there.
Wait, what?
So the only time that you're going to meld is if you have two actual cards, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm getting what this question is asking, is with meld cards, just like with transform cards, with double-faced cards, you must either play them in totally opaque sleeves or with a checklist card.
Yeah, I think they're wondering about stuff like Morph or whatever.
So basically what if you are playing your deck unsleeved, you're going to have a checklist card in there in place of, say, Graph Rats. But as soon as you cast that card, you have a Graph Rats with you, because you do need to actually own that checklist card, and so you would then put it on the battlefield instead.
Yeah.
So when you go to meld later on, you're not turning over a checklist card, you're turning over an actual Graph Rats.
Yep.
I think that gets to the heart of whatever that question might have been.
Yeah, and as mentioned, tokens can't meld usefully. They go away and never come back. So
goodbye, buddies.
Yeah.
Goodbye
so you're never
forever.
going to end up in a situation where you're going to only have half of the text of a card.
Okay.
Goodbye to you.
Oh, I was wondering where you're going to go. I was thinking it was Goodbye Stranger.
No.
Supertramp.
Supertramp.
So here we have a question. I have Brizella enchanted with Flicker Form. I activate Flicker Form's ability. What happens? Here's Flicker Form. I'm going to read it. There might be a sort of a similar effect
in the set is just otherworldly.
The otherworldly journey, whatever it is. But it essentially enchant the creature, and then you can exile it or whatever. Yeah, we sort of touched on this before.
What do you mean you can exile it or whatever?
This is what Flicker Form says. 1 in a white enchantment or enchant creature, 2 white, exile enchanted creature and all auras attached to it. At the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under the owner's control. If you do, return the other cards exiled this way to the battlefield under their owner's control attached to that creature.
But you wouldn't be able to attach the aura to anything, correct? Because it was attached to Brizella?
So it was attached to Brizella. This gives you instruction to attach it to that thing. I'm going to glance at the rules really quick to make sure that I'm...
Ah, man, I don't know.
Because, so you pay that you attach it to Brizella. What's it called? Flicker Form?
Yeah.
Yep.
You attach Flicker Form to Brizella. You activate it. Brizella goes away.
Yep.
Comes back as Gisela and Bruna. Where does the Flicker Form go?
Man.
What does Flicker Form say again? Just the end bit?
Return the card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If you do, return the other cards exiled this way to the battlefield under their owner's control attached to that creature. My. It's a tricky little question.
So, this
may be the...
You should get to choose which thing it attaches to. It's going to try to attach to both, and only one of them is going to be functional.
Okay.
I'm just making sure that I have rule support for that in the release notes.
Or if you're just kind of like feeling it with your gut,
You know what I feel with my gut?
Hot.
Yes.
My gut feels so hot right now.
I'll stop the world and melt in this room. I see the temperature and it's getting higher all the time. Yep.
Great song. It really works.
It really does. It's unfortunately applicable to our situation.
If a player exiles a melded permanent, that player determines the relative timestamp order of the 2 cards at that time, blah, blah, blah. If an effect can find the new object that a melded permanent becomes as it leaves the battlefield, it finds both cards. If that effect causes actions to be taken upon those cards, those actions are taken upon each of those cards. But an aura can only be attached to one permanent at a time. If you try to attach an aura to 2 different permanents at the same time, you pick which one it's attached to.
Okay.
Okay. So you would be able to pick one of them to attach it to.
Yes.
But then when they meld it again, it would just fall off?
Yeah.
Okay.
They leave, it dies.
They come back.
Yep.
Word.
It comes back.
It comes back.
Word. So this next question is about unsubstantiate.
Ooh.
Unsubstantiate. So, that one reads, 1 in a blue, instant, return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. The question says, I don't get how this works. Is it a pseudo counter spell because the spell doesn't exist when it resolves?
Yep. The spell just doesn't resolve. This is not actually new territory. Remand did this. Returns it to their hand. It's not in the stack anymore. It's gone.
Yeah.
But
to answer their question, I think they're asking, they thought, the spell does go back to their hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's not really countered. I mean.
So countering is a word that just means take that card right now and put it in its owner's graveyard. It could just say put target spell in its owner's graveyard. Countering could just say that.
Okay.
And so this is the same thing. It's just returning it to their hand.
Sure.
And it isn't the action of countering it. So things that can't be countered, unsubstantiate will solve.
Okay.
Oh, nice. So you can unsubstantiate an abrupt decay.
Correct.
Very cool.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so it still goes back to their hand, but nothing resolves. It doesn't resolve.
Yep.
That's
if it had a cast trigger, as we mentioned before, it'll still happen.
Yes.
Cool. Clarify emerge. Can it be done at instant speed?
It depends on whether the creature can be cast at instant speed. The Elder Deep Friend has flash. You can emerge with flash for him because you say, I'm casting this spell with flash. I'm going to choose to cast it this other special way. But it doesn't change. It doesn't change the speed that you can cast the creature.
Okay. How does Writhing Township being killed affect Delirium? So, how many different types is this bad boy in the graveyard?
So when you kill something with merge, it unmerges and both separate cards are in the graveyard.
Yeah.
So it's a creature and a land because it's 2 different cards that are a creature and a land.
With the trigger on the stack, can you sacrifice 1/2 of a meld and still get the melded form?
Nope. Meld triggers have what is called an intervening if clause. Or in the case of, they just say if you do have this thing that is true. In the case of Handweir the Writhing Township, it checks at the time that the activated ability is resolving. But the other ones have triggers that say if this thing is true at this time, and it checks both at the time it goes in the stack and at the time it goes to resolve.
Gotcha.
And if it's not true and it goes to resolve, it does nothing.
Gotcha.
How does Spell Queller plus Essence Flux work? Not how you want it to, unfortunately, is the side note. So I think they're just pointing something out.
Yep. So Spell Queller is a weird card. We didn't really touch on it. It's mostly straightforward what it does. White, blue, 1. 2/3, creature spirit, flash, flying. When Spell Queller enters the battlefield, exile target spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. When Spell Queller leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So it's
good card.
Yeah, it's an Oblivion Ring for cheap spells, and it has triggered abilities, which means it's technically possible to remove the spell forever. So cast Spell Queller, put the trigger in the stack, target a thing, respond to your own trigger, bounce your Spell Queller.
The spell goes away forever.
Right, because then the leaves the battlefield trigger resolves first.
Gotcha.
There's no spell to cast. Then the enters the battlefield trigger resolves and exiles it. The card they were asking about.
Essence Flux.
I don't know the names of all the cards in the set yet.
Come on, Rob.
Try. What color is it? It's probably blue.
Sounds very blue.
White.
Is it even in the set?
I think it might be from something else.
I think it's from something else.
Yeah. Essence Flux. Oh, it's the blue card. So Essence Flux reads, it's a single blue instant. Exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it's a spirit, give it a +1/+1 counter.
So there's a lot of options that you can choose to do with Essence Flux. You can do what I just said and respond to the exile the spell trigger, flicker the
spell queller,
and the Leaves Play trigger will trigger, resolve, do nothing. Then it'll come back into play, and the Enters Play trigger will go on the stack, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's still probably fine for you. Is it optional? I hope it's optional. I want it to be optional.
Essence Flux?
No, spell
queller.
Oh, yeah.
Exile targets both converted mana cost 4 or less. So, nope, it's not optional. So you'll have to target that spell.
So it doesn't matter with Essence Flux because it comes right in.
It could, because if they have multiple spells, you can get multiple spells with it that way.
Oh, okay.
And then the one that you choose to target first and then flicker will get removed forever.
Gotcha.
The second one won't be.
It'll just be the regular exile spell queller.
You could also just randomly counter spells by flickering spell queller in front of them. And because it exiles and returns immediately, both triggers are happening. Both the Leaves Play and the Enters the Battlefield trigger, and so you get to choose the order that they're going to go on the stack.
Okay.
So Spell Queller has something exiled. They cast another spell. You flicker Spell Queller.
Okay.
And then you have a cast the old spell, exile the new spell trigger that are going in the stack, but you get to choose which order. So you get to choose if their new spell goes in the stack first, or if the old spell gets exiled first.
Okay.
This may not matter, but it may matter.
Okay.
Classic magic rules. This may matter, but it may not matter.
Yep.
I have a question. Tell me if I'm just being a real dum-dum sucker pop. With Summary Dismissal, 2 blue, instant, exile all other spells and counter all abilities. I honestly cannot tell you what that means.
So this does two things. All the spells that are on the stack right now, including it, or all the other spells in the stack, because it doesn't say exile itself.
So it's only the stack we're worried about.
Yep. Spells are things that are on the stack. Creatures on the stack are creature spells.
Okay,
Artifacts on the stack
see.
are artifact spells. So it's take all the things that are on the stack and throw them away.
Okay.
Get them out of here.
Yep.
Out.
It will counter abilities instead of exiling them.
So does that mean, like, say I've got some spells on the stack, and meanwhile I've activated some creatures' activated ability?
Realistically, what this does is it counters Emrakul and Emrakul's trigger.
Oh, okay.
Because Emrakul's on the stack or triggers in the stack, you Summary Dismissal, you exile Emrakul and counter Emrakul's trigger.
Okay.
Like, this is counter an Eldrazi and all the things that it does.
But would it?
Yes.
If I had some creature activated ability, that'd be gone too. Bye, clear the stack.
Yep.
If you had activated a Duskwatch Recruiter, and then if you had cast an Emrakul, and then for some reason activated a Duskwatch Recruiter at the same time because you felt like it, well, you would just at that point you'd be like no
Major
to all
blowout.
of those.
Okay.
It's probably a little more likely in Two-Headed Giant or EDH, where like I will cast a Wrath effect and you have a Duskwatch Recruiter and you'll activate Duskwatch Recruiter, and then Mario will be like, counter that spell and also stop all those abilities.
Gotcha.
Oh, sick.
Nice.
But
more effectively, it's like, no, you don't get an Emrakul, and you don't get my turn, buddy.
Yep.
Ooh, okay.
Yep.
Cool. Because just countering Emrakul, you'll still get
They'll still
control
take your
of the
turn.
Yep. Because Emrakul's a cast ability.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, well, that's all the questions we had submitted.
Nice.
Okay. Sweet.
Great questions, everybody. Thanks for hanging out and asking that kind of stuff. If people have other questions that they want your direct advice on, Rob, how can they get in touch with you?
They can ship me an email, robbit, ROBBIT, @gmail.com. Or if you want to send me a contact through the Magic Judge feedback form, blogs.magicjudges.org/O, and then hit the contact link, and there's a link on how to contact regional coordinators.
Awesome.
Very cool.
All right, the moment you've all been waiting for, Cutest
Yes.
and Grossest card
Yes.
in the set.
We're going to reveal them to you before you never get to know them because being too hot makes us both never speak again.
Meghan, do you want to go first this time?
Sure. All right, everybody.
Because I have to find a tweet. Oh, I found it.
The Grossest card is difficult.
I mean,
in this, in it's Innistrad, you know, it's
Yep.
it's horror town, and it's always it's difficult to pick the biggest monster of them all. But I'll tell you the runner-ups. There's 2 runner-ups.
Okay.
The first runner-up is Decimator of the Provinces. It's a pig with like 3 faces.
Ew.
It's really gross. It's like a giant warthog, but it's got like 3 to 5 faces on it. Really super gross. The next one is It of the Horrid Swarm, which is like an insect. Oh boy, yep, it's making me grossed out just to look at it. And then the winner, Seedrino 2.0 himself, Abundant Maw, if only for having the creature type Eldrazi Leech. Get out of here.
Are you sure you're not just mad at it because it's a new Siege Rhino?
I don't care.
I actually kind of want to see a picture of this close up to see if there's a sense of scale. Are those little tiny white things people?
Oh my goodness.
It's also for sure the chest burster from Alien. Like, look at it. It's
what could that emerge from? There's nothing big enough to let that out.
All right, everybody. It's time for Cutest Card, the crowning moment of any set. I want to read for you a tweet that somebody sent me. I've received a lot of threats for Cutest Card this time around. Here's one. I know it'll be everyone's pick for Cutest, but if it isn't your pick for Cutest, you are a literal monster. And somebody put the picture of Harmless Offering, of course, the cute little kitty cat card from the set.
It's actually really horrifying. Have you seen the art large?
Yes.
It has a little snake on its tail?
Snake tail.
And also, its foot is a horrifying claw.
Is it?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. I noticed that as well.
Oh, I want to look at its
It's like one of
foot.
its back feet.
Oh,
There's a claw.
yeah. But that face, though. That chubby little cat face.
Yeah.
So, I've received a lot of death threats about making sure this is the Cutest Card. I just have to say, I've done a rant about it, that I don't like when my hand is forced for Cutest Card. I don't like it one bit. But, here are some of the runners-up, which I said I would name. Fogwalker, runner-up. It's a cute little long-legged spirit that's walking around in the fog.
Yep.
And Lashweed Lurker, which is an Eldrazi horror, but it's kind of adorable, and it's got bioluminescence, which is something I adore in a fish. It's kind of got like a little fish face and little sloopy arms. So that's cute.
It does have little sloopy arms.
It's kind of cute. But of course, the winner is going to be Harmless Offering. There's just no way I cannot. I mean, I'm a cat person.
True.
People know it.
It's because you're a cat person.
I'm extremely angry that I am choosing it, and I am disappointed in myself.
There's so many good choices.
As a person. What, Rob?
Curious Homunculus.
Okay, you said Curious Homunculus. It is cute, but for me, it's just not adorable. Do you know what I mean?
He just wants to learn. He turns into a voracious reader. That's what he grows up to be, is a voracious reader.
And isn't that what we want for all homunculuses growing up?
That's true.
It's true.
There's also Geist of the Archives. Someone who wants to read so badly that even when they're in chains.
They come back as a ghost in chains.
I think that's creepy.
That one is a little creepy.
But yeah, so that's the Cutest Card. That's the Grossest Card. Enjoy it. If you follow us on Twitter, I'm sure we'll have some pretty adorable illustrations of these cards coming your way very soon, courtesy of our good friend Steve. So yeah, there you go. Yay! Okay, everybody, thanks for listening to Magic the Amateuring this week.
That's right. We're going to keep this part brief out of concern for our health. If you would like to contact us, you can do so at MTAcast on Twitter. You can also get us at magictheamateuring@gmail.com. Buy sweet playmats and sweet shirts at magictheamateuring.com. And also support us on Patreon. We'll do things like buy jumpsuits. What was it?
Armadillo underwear.
Armadillo underwear and air conditioning.
None of that is true. We only put it back into the show, FYI. And we keep reaching this precipice at our current goal, $600 amount, and then we keep slipping under it. So I really want this goal to happen because we get to release a set of bloopers, and the professor is editing it, and he told me that it's 30 minutes long.
Oh my goodness.
And he's watched it about 20 times, and he dies laughing every time. And I'm just like, I need to see this.
We haven't seen our bloopers.
Seen it. We don't know what we're going to say. So please go over there and support us, if not just to push us up over that goal and to keep us moving forward, because moving forward as a show is something that's super important to us, to continue bringing you more and better content as we grow and as you become part of our family. So thank you. If you are a patron, you do a whole heck of a lot for the show. And if you're not, consider joining our family if the show brings you any joy from week to week. But yeah, that's my little spiel. Thanks, Judge Rob, for being here
welcome anytime. Love to be on the show.
You're great. You've been our judge since day one, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you been our judge, actually?
That's a fantastic question.
I don't even
We'll
know.
have to go back and count.
Yeah, I was on the show back when it wasn't video, and then back when there were 3 members of Magic the Amateuring.
Yeah.
And when the theme of the show was different, and
so many
crazy.
things.
Yeah.
So many.
And then we went to GP Portland. And that was fun.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we're a
That
team.
was fun times.
It really was.
And the 2 of you were so adorable. You were like, man, I can't tell what time it is because I've been in this like artificially lit concrete room for 3 days, and it's so weird. And I'm like,
The story
every
of-
weekend,
Yep. Story of
every
my life.
single
Story.
weekend.